Hello guys, my name is Amit Sani and I welcome you in this daily Hindu analysis video. In the morning these videos come, in the evening the PIB videos they come. And 11th of May it is, we are discussing important questions, important MCQs, important data, facts and editorials. The things which are being discussed in the editorials, they will be crucial for the prelims also. So do not miss any of the lesson and please share them with your friends and please spread these lessons so that many people can take advantage of it. And please tell me if any kind of comments, any kind of difficulties you face, any kind of lack you face in these lessons, and then please let me know about that. These are the numbers there you can call and you can ask for these pen drive courses, and this is the website address where all these courses are available. 60% off is also going on, and totally exam oriented sessions. These are PIB lesson is much more prelims oriented, so please do not miss that. Question was the states affected by uranium. You see 16 states of India, they are affected by uranium mineral, and you see it happens naturally in the groundwater, but the safe limit is 30 microgram per liter according to WHO's estimate, but now it is way more than that. And shocking is that Rajasthan was not in the list, but recent studies showed that 1/3 of the total samples of the contaminated water they are coming from the Rajasthan districts, and this is very shocking. New discovery was also there of uranium in the Shekhawati region of the Rajasthan, that is northeastern part of Rajasthan. So there these cases are too much, and Telangana, Gujarat, there also these cases are found. So 1, 2, 3 is the correct answer here. D is the correct answer. Next, Chandrayaan 2. Chandrayaan 1 we sent in 2008, and with the launching of it we started thinking about the Chandrayaan 2. Important discoveries were made by Chandrayaan 1 like subsurface water ice and all. So all these things were done. This time it is going to be a change. We will not hit the surface, we will soft land there on the South Pole region, as I have discussed many times, and this is the biggest achievement, that it is going to be the soft landing. And Vikram lander is very, very famous. This year a sure question is there about Vikram lander and Pragyan rover that will move over the surface, and the orbiter is also there. So these three important things are there, and 14 Indian payloads would be there on the Chandrayaan 2. 8 on the orbiter, 4 on the lander and 2 on the rover. These 14 payloads. Pragyan is the rover, again reminding you, Vikram is the lander. That is very, very important, and Vikram is the most important thing here. You see, in situ experiments would be done by Pragyan rover, because it will move and it will dig the surface, and all these things would be done. GSLV Mark 3 rocket will be taking it because the weight is more than 3000 kilograms, and mineralogy, element abundance, lunar exosphere and hydroxyl water ice, all these experiments, all these discoveries, they would try to get there. And as it is all, and it is scheduled to be launched in July. Okay, July this year 19. That is the proposed date for that. So that's important, and we would have to see what kind of achievement ISRO does as the next phase. Next, Cyclone Phailin fury creates 4 new mouths in Odisha's Chilika Lake. You see, it was a big devastation. It was a big force, and unimaginable changes it could bring in the geography. So 4 new mouths of the Chilika Lake. You see, it is the biggest brackish water lake of Asia. Brackish water lake means it's a lagoon lake. How? You see, it is the mainland, it is ocean, and somehow separated with the Bayer Islands and all, but not totally isolated. So some oceanic salty water that enters into this particular water body, which is fed by the soft water also. So this water is mixed up, and the pure water of the rivers and the oceanic salty water, they are mixed, and it is creating the brackish water. This is called the brackish water, and it's a high diversity area. And the important thing is that it is called a lagoon lake because the geography explains it as a lagoon lake, because this is the shape and it is somehow separated by the Bayer Islands from the ocean. So it is called lagoon lake. So the biggest brackish water lake in Asia. Okay, it is on the Odisha's coast, eastern coast, and towards Bay of Bengal. As we all know it, Puri is the nearby place. Now 4 new mouths have been opened due to wave energy with high tidal prisms. So this is a really big thing, and they need to assess that what kind of ecological changes there would be, because these things are sometimes devastating. These things are sometimes bringing new changes and new species and new developments in the biodiversity profile. So that is a great example here. And you see the issues of climate change, their impacts, consequences, they also can be assessed by these kind of examples. So this becomes very, very important now. Next, trade war escalates between Russia and China. Somehow things were going towards a positive change, but now Vice President of China, he moved to US and this meeting was going on and he's still there. But Trump suddenly tweeted the day before yesterday's night that they would raise these tariffs from 10% to 25% on some particular products. So this duty would be rising by heavy numbers. So the total of Chinese imports, the duty would be $250 billion. So that's really, really huge. And China is certainly going to retaliate with this issue. Already the world growth was going through a troublesome phase, and the prospects of the world growth that were also declined in the January 2018. They gave a number of 3.5% for the world economic growth, but now they changed it to 3.3 only. So it was because of the main issue of the tussle and the trade war between China and America. Now it is again towards a escalation. So that's a really troublesome thing. Computer electronics are the biggest share here, and you see $539 billion imports are coming from China. So these are really, really big issues. Now important article is also given regarding that issue, so we will discuss there. Amazon unveils a space vision. You see, Blue Origin is the company by Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon company. So this Blue Origin is a space company, unveiled a lunar lander as our Vikram lander is there. So they are unveiling Blue Moon named lunar lander. This is the design of it, and you see this is going to do the soft landing again. Just we are going to do it on the South Pole. In the same way on the South Pole it is going to make a landing there, but its plans are huge, and they are planning underground colonies there. Why underground on Moon? Because Moon has no atmosphere, so any kind of meteor strike or anything is happening, or the radiation that is going straight towards the surface, and it is going to hit these people who will be on the Moon. So they need protection. So the protection is also emphasized here, and they will create underground colonies so that they will be safe from these bombardments of meteors sometimes, which are creating deep craters on the Moon surface. So that is why this is really huge. And you see where we are stuck with the Gaay Ka Gobar and the very, very funny, nonsensical, all kinds of political campaigning, all kinds of debates are happening on these nonsensical issues, and where this world is going. Even ISRO is there in our same country. ISRO is there, that is so positive, that is so progressive, and in the political class from where all the authority is emanating and from where all controls are happening, those people are busy in discussing those shits in a way. And here the world is going towards which direction? We need to see here. We need to set our priorities. These things are also taking us towards these thoughts and these discussions, because nowhere we saw on the public debate, on the public issues before the elections, that these kind of things were discussed. No, they are not discussed. So they are just as a nice advertisement, positive advertisement, and some achievement that is also taken as a credit by the governments. So that's a nonsensical thing. But here you see Jeff Bezos, as you see SpaceX is by Elon Musk, Tesla company chairman, and here Jeff Bezos by Amazon. So these people are investing in these futuristic technologies because they see the future there. They do a lot of researches, they support these developments and all, and because they want to see a positive and a new opportunity in a new world. So these developments are going in that direction. So that's really huge for humanity, all humanity. It is not only for Jeff Bezos, it is for whole humanity, because they are starting new avenues of life there. Because the way Earth is being exploited, we do not see a great future here. Next, IIP at a 21-month low as manufacturing slows down. A temporary estimate every year comes by CSO body under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So this IIP index is released every month. It's a temporary index. Annual survey of industries, that is also given by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So that's a more robust data, annual data. But before that, we need some information, we need some direction there, we need some guidance there. So the IIP index that gives that particular guidance. And here, for unprecedented times, it was 5.33% in March 18, and in March 19 it is 0.1%. That is a huge decline there. And before the elections, these things may be obvious that many such speculations are there, but the decline so huge, it's a cause of concern, and we need to see and we need to focus on these issues. Otherwise, things may go out of our hands. Already the NPA crisis is going on, and in the industry we are looking at major crisis like situations, like in the manufacturing sector, as we saw yesterday, that due to the base effect, some kind of low growth was seen, but that was because of the base effect. Real growth we did not achieve there. And here in some sectors, you see electricity sector got boost of 2.7%, 2.17%, and the infrastructure sector, that also got some boost, but mainly the manufacturing sector, that slows down to 0.1% level, and that's really a big concern. Capital goods sector contracted for a third consecutive month. So capital goods means the investment in the capital goods sector, that is the basis of manufacturing. So that is why we see these kind of results here. So we need to tackle that, but right now the elections are going on. After that, these would be the prime issues: the manufacturing sector, the NPA sector, and all these issues. Next, India faces acute shortage of healthcare providers. WHO says every 1,000 people there must be a doctor, and the ratios are also given for the nurses, compounders, and all these healthcare professionals. Here there is an acute shortage. It says that around 50% more vacancies should be there, but whatever vacancies we have, we are not able to fulfill those also. 18% of primary health centers are running without doctors, 38% are running without laboratory technicians, 16% are running without pharmacists. So what kind of a shameful condition is this? And you see, we need at least 5 to 10% of the percentage of the GDP as budget allocation in the health sector. But what is our allocation in the health sector? That is less than 1%. Less than 1%. So shameful these numbers are for such a big country. And we are bringing these great plans like Jan Arogya Yojana and the wellness centers and all, and this Ayushman Bharat scheme as a whole. So these are great developments, but what about the primary health issue and the budget allocation? That is not changed, and we are targeting till 2025. You will be ashamed of this data, that till 2025 we are targeting 2.5% of the GDP numbers, where today we need 5 to 10%, so that we can cover the issues of communicable disease like tuberculosis and all, where we have target of 2025, but we are hardly gonna cover that target, and for that war scale like efforts are needed. So 5 to 10% GDP percentage is needed in the health sector, but we are targeting 2.5% in 2025. So what kind of joke is this? And we are discussing cow's shit here. So that is problematic. That is really problematic. And the issue is that we all are culprits here, because the governments who are not taking concern of these issues, and they are not heeding to these demands, and the vacancies are not being fulfilled, and that's their fault. After that, the pressure which is coming from the public, that is for the regions like excessive security and religion and caste reservation, all these issues are dominant in the public sphere. These issues are not discussed, and these are really impacting every life. You see, health sector, that is affecting every life. Cancer, AIDS, diabetes, stroke, TB, tuberculosis, these are public issues, but people are not discussing, people are not pushing governments for these issues. And here when professionals are needed, because without professionals we are not able to do anything in this sector, and here the need is just double, and we are not even able to employ around 30-40%. That is needed, okay, because the sanction strength is around half, whatever that is needed from that. So we are not able to employ sufficient people here, and we need a lot of issues. Some steps like Ayurveda doctors and these dentists, they are allowed now that they will do some bridge course, and they will be able to work like normal doctors, MBBS doctors, and they will write medicines and all. But that is all again opposed by these Medical Council of India officials. Why? Because they are saying that you need to raise vacancies in the medical colleges, and mainly the government medical colleges, because in the private sector nobody can afford there. So government medical colleges, they need bigger number of seats, but you are not giving that, and you are diverting dentists and Ayurvedic doctors towards this sector. What is the meaning? And that's really legitimate. So that is the big issue there. And now missing firms, government says not much impact on GDP working. That's again a big issue, and many scrutinies and evaluations and important analysis would come on this huge data, because according to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs web tool MCA 21, it says that around 36 to 38% of the companies which were there and they were contributing to the GDP numbers, they are not even there. They are out of survey units, and the audits were not done by for these companies. But Mr. Jaitley, Finance Minister, says that they are not going to bring any impact there, because they will not put much impact on the GDP working. I don't know why these companies were there. If they are not going to give any kind of impact, then why these were counted there? But you see, as they say, everything is sacrosanct, everything is right, whatever they say. So Central Statistical Office overestimate the GDP product of the country, that is the allegation. And here NSSO data said that 35,456 companies are taken from the MC21 database. Out of these 35,000, 38.7% were out of survey units. So this is a really a bizarre situation. But what kind of impact is there, and why these things are not mattering with the GDP numbers, that is need to be evaluated. So all the think tanks and these genius minds, genius economists of India, they are analyzing this data, because it has just come, and they are certainly going to do some research on that why these things are happening, and why government is saying that these things are not going to bring any impact. So what is the logic of these people, and what is the logic of these surveys and audits which are not being done here? So we will see big articles in the next week, or maybe next to next week here. Now vocabulary, these are the words that I found today. And now about the articles. All the 4 articles are important today. This is regarding the Supreme Court's working and the collegium system and the appointment of the judges. So GS paper 2 would be important here. Again in this GS paper 2 would be important here. It is regarding the China and US's tariff wars and trade wars that we discussed in brief. It is a very important article. Point to point it is raising all the issues, and the NPA crisis is actually at the core of it. So GS paper 2 and 3 both would be important here. New clouds over the Persian Gulf. Here it is the situation of Iran and how it is going towards a negative decision making. So it is gonna be very crucial. So GS paper 2 would be important here. Now let's discuss that. Resolving India's banking crisis. Acceleration in economic growth is not possible without addressing the problem of non-performing assets. You see, the biggest humongous task in front of the next government is the serious and unresolved problem of Indian banking sector. Without solving NPAs, you cannot support banks. Recapitalization is never going to help. Here you need to support their earnings, and their earnings is based on their assets. Assets are loans which are failing. So 11.2% of the advances in March 18, it's a huge number, 10.3 trillion rupees. You see, in after the 2008 crisis, NPAs were around 566 billion rupees. That means 20 times lesser than today's numbers. And that was the world crisis. And today, that much crisis situation is not there. But you see, 10.3 million, trillion, not billion, this is trillion rupees NPAs. And out of these 10.3, 8.9 trillion rupees are there with the public sector banks. They are the targets here. And here writer is giving some data which are showing that how these public sector banks are targeted and how they became the victim of the wrong policy making, wrong management, and some anti-dumping issues, the trade with China, the trade policies which were failing, and some forces which were pushing these public sector banks to give loans to these ultra sensitive areas which were about to fail. And situation was also bad in the starting with the private banks, but now the situation is no more that much bad with these private banks, but the public sector banks, they are hanging, and proposals are there that privatize these banks. But the writer says it is not the solution. Here he starts from the credit boom of 4, 5 to 8, 9 years, where we recorded maximum level of growth, around 9% was our growth, and there is no confusion about that. It was a period in which the world economy as well as the Indian economy were booming. It was a heated economy, and all these loans in telecom sector, power sector, road sector, aviation sector, steel sector, Those were given. These are the biggest basic sectors, and all these loans were given. But you see, 86% of the total NPAs with these sectors, they are with the PSBs, and all the NPAs crisis which is there with the PSBs, that is also amount to 86% around according to the rough data given by the writers, the C. Rangarajan, the former governor, and D.N. Mohan. According to their rough estimates, these numbers are same. Means whatever NPAs were there, these were there with these important sectors. Electricity was also a sector here. So they say that the factors which went by after 2012, the depreciation of rupee, rising financial costs for the companies, and higher outflows for the companies that had borrowed in foreign currency. When this depreciation happened, so at that time it was close to 60 rupees. Now it is touching 70 rupees. That's a different situation. Nobody is talking about that. But at that time, 60 rupees were the around value of the dollar. So because of that, a lot of money they needed to give back to these countries, because the payments were done in the dollars. And at that time, depreciation was there. They were earning in rupees, but they had to pay in dollars. So it was a big pressure on these companies, and they lost a lot of things here. And that is why they could not pay the domestic loans. So that is how PSBs, their earnings, that declined. And you see, in 14-15, they actually changed the methodology of NPAs also. Earlier, that was a wrong precedent, that 6 months normally were taken to declare a loan as NPA, but they changed it to 90 days, means within 3 months they would declare a loan as NPA if the installments are not coming. So that was the right decision. According to the writer, these were the right decisions, and these should have been there earlier, but that did not happen. And once NPAs happen, it is important to resolve them quickly, because the interest is adding every day. So every day the crisis is rising, and the interest on dues causes NPAs to rise relentlessly. So that's a big problem. In brief, is the story of the NPA problem. Since the problem is more concentrated in PSBs, some have argued that public ownership must be the problem. They gave this argument that the people who are working, the officials who are working in the banks, in the public sector banks mainly, they are not efficient, and they should be thrown out, and all these banks and all, they should be privatized. But you see, when out of some force you push these banks to give loans to ultra sensitive sectors, then the factors came which were out of banks decision making and their control. These policy decisions, depreciation of rupees, and all these factors were there, and because of that, banks struggled. And now you are saying that banks are inefficient, these officials are inefficient. That is not correct. That is not the solution. Here the writer explains that with the private banks like Standard Chartered Bank 11.7% NPAs, ICICI Bank 9.9% NPAs, and SBI 10.9%, means things were not so great with the private sector banks, but public sector banks suffered more, because these loans all were going towards these important areas, and these private banks, they did not give many loans to these sectors, and that's why they could recover. And here they are not able to recover, and consistently the taxpayers' money that is being routed towards these banks, recapitalization is happening in installments. So these are the problems. This is not the fault of bank officials or the bank employees or these public sector banks as a whole. It's a problem of the mismanagement and the policy failures. Here there needed some important steps. Here the solutions are being advised here. Haircuts. What are haircuts? If I am going to take loans of 100 rupees and 80 rupees property I am putting as collateral, then 20 rupees would be the haircut, because that is not covered by the collateral property or something like that. So banks, they have to accept losses on the haircuts, otherwise nothing would be in their hands. At least something they should get as recovery, so they should not care about the haircuts. That thing should be put on the risk, because in this case, you see, if they want to recover something, then at least they could recover 80% if they would not care about this 20% haircut. So here the writer says that they need to leave about the haircuts and they need to focus on the recovery. And Indian Banks Association set up a 6-member panel to oversee resolution plans of the lead lenders, and that's correct. And alternative is to set up a loan resolution authority. That is also a big suggestion, and that should be done. And that should be done even by the parliament by passing a act on that. So even that is acceptable and that is needed, so that the recapitalization would not be needed for a longer period of time. In one go, you give this money in a recapitalization amount, and whatever pressure would be there, we would see that, but at least this issue would be resolved for one time, and after that bring strict rules, bring strict guidelines, so that this issue is never repeated in the future. But if they are not taking these kind of steps, then certainly the will is not there, and they just are pushing for the privatization of these banks. They are intentionally failing these banks. So these things are needed to be done, and they need to take care about the credit bubbles. What are credit bubbles? Means they need to see if the concern is rising, if the NPAs are rising, then it is very difficult to understand the issue. So there are some checks. What are the checks? They need to match these situations of economic condition and the credit growth of these banks. As we saw yesterday in the report, that credit growth was good, and they achieved something in the last year. So they need to see their credit growth rate, and they need to see the growth in economy. If there is a match, then it's good. If there is a mismatch, then there can be credit bubbles. Means we think that returns would be there, but that bubble would burst, and the big losses would be there. So that thing should not be there. Some steps are taken, but you see the situation is so out of hand that these steps are hardly helping here. What are the good steps here? From April 1, 2019, the limit for exposure to any business group has been reduced from 40% of the total capital to 25% of the Tier 1 capital. Tier 1 capital is the core capital of the bank, where stakeholders' money and the retained profit of the bank, which is going to be for the permanent money, and that would be the Tier 1 capital. So that's the core money, and the regulation and all these faith of these regulatory bodies and all, that is dependent on this tier 1 money. So that's the most important money for the banks. So Tier 1 capital, that would not be exposed to 40% level to these business groups. Only 25% is allowed now. So that's good, and for the single borrowers, it would not be more than 20%. So these are some good steps, that do not expose everything. Keep things with you, more with you, so that less risk would be there. And banks need to do that today, because they are facing the NPA crisis, and that's the biggest issue. They are earning with the loans, and more loans they would give, they would earn more. But if the loans are going to fail, then they are losing everything there. So that's the problem. That's the very very devastating dilemma for these banks, because time is also money for the banks. That is also going on. And risk management, we need to induct more high quality professionals on the PSB boards. That's also needed, and compensate them better, so that they are not involved in some kind of corruption or some kind of pressure. So that's also a big need. Next article, new clouds over the Persian Gulf. Here, when Iran decides to withdraw partially from the nuclear deal, and it is saying that I'm going to remove the caps of 3.6% around according to the civil nuclear deal, because 3.6% is allowed for the civilian use. But if they are going for the atomic bombs and all, then they need to go beyond this 3.6% limit towards 90% limit. So Iran is saying that if these countries, others from USA, these P5+1 countries which were involved in this JCPOA, if they are not going to favor Iran, then we are certainly gonna raise this cap, and enrichment levels they would rise, and Iraq nuclear facility and other Fazan facility, we will appreciate that, and we will make these atomic bombs and these militias and all. We will support that openly, and certainly these things we are gonna retaliate here. You see, writer says that it's not a good thing, and it's a very worrisome trend, because right now these countries are saying that the sanctions by the America country, these are not legitimate one. So in a way they are with Iran, and in Kremlin, the Russia is also supporting openly Iran, that it is saying that these are illegitimate sanctions on Iran, and we would oppose these in all ways. But you see, Russia has its own interests, so Iran is cornered here, and now Trump's moves, its steps, they are strangulating the average life of the citizen of the Iran. So here all these things are going against Iran, and Iran is cornered, and Iran says that if these countries are not gonna help me, then I will appreciate my nuclear facilities, and we will encourage these developments, and we will certainly retaliate here. And Iran is not a small country, it's a huge country, and if it fails to commit on these issues, and if it withdraws from this deal totally, then it is going to be devastating for the whole world, because it's not a small issue. Iran is having a big stockpile of these nukes and all. So Russian gesture is not without some long-term interest of the Kremlin. We all know that. But about all other countries like Germany, which was the part of this P5+1 agreement. What was this P5+1? It was the JCPOA's name, and all these countries of P5 group, Security Council Permanent Group, all were there, plus EU, and Germany was also there. So these countries other than USA, today they are saying, but tomorrow they won't be able to support Iran, because if Iran is talking about these nukes and the development of these facilities, then these countries would also back out, and Iran would be totally cornered, totally isolated, and then only negative developments would be there. So here Iran is losing patience there. That is said by the writer here, and it says that restriction on its banking and oil sectors in the next 60 days, if they are not going to ease down, and something is not done, then they are going to make this policy, as they are going to retaliate with these nuclear nukes, and anything may happen in the future. So this is going to be devastating for the whole world, not only for these countries. And you see, America has deployed all these aircraft carriers and all these missiles and all, that anytime they may have to attack the Iran supported facilities. And you see, Iran is continuing to support Bashar al-Assad's government that is opposing America, because America supported the rebels there, and the support towards these militias and all these groups and all, that is also continued by Iran. And because of these reasons, America has declared Iran as a rogue state. It declared its IRGC as the terrorist organization. So in a way, it has started already to defame Iran in all senses. And you see, tomorrow if America attacks Iran like Afghanistan or the Syria or something, some other countries like it has attacked in the past, so that would be declared as a legitimate, because it will say that I already told that it's a rogue state. So these developments are being seen by Iran, and that's why Iran is being so stern about these things, and it is losing patience here. So maintaining JACPOA is extremely important, and Donald Trump and its aides, the outcome of their confrontation with Iran is clearly to deprive the Iranian regime of the funds it can use to impose its hegemony around the West Asia. So in the West Asia, you see, Israel is already there, and it's a proxy. You can say that total support of America is there, and here Iran is there to oppose. So in the West Asia, it cannot accept Iran's hegemony, so it is doing everything. It is blocking financially Iran in all ways, so that it cannot finance all these bodies and groups and all, because its presence there in Lebanon, its presence there in Syria, and it is supporting those groups which are opposing Israel and America. So these are worrisome developments. They need to de-escalate from here. Otherwise, this is going to be problematic. Already the trade war with China is going on. You see what kind of development that can be there in the world, because in the past world wars happened in this way only. Groups were created. Here China is being opposed by America in all these trade wars and all. Russia is already there. Now Iran is being totally cornered. So there may be a bigger escalation, and here Iran is also losing good relations with European countries, because it is talking about the nuclear facilities and weapons and their developments. So these countries won't be able to back Iran for a longer period of time. And many other important revelations are being there. Recently the report was there in the WikiLeaks that CIA created ISIS and all. So if these kind of reports would come, then certainly the devastation of images of these countries, that would happen. You see, when these world wars happen, before that there are clashes over the images, and these countries, they are defamed by the other country. So this starts with the destruction of the peaceful images and the supportive images, and then they all are declared as hostile nations, and then they attack each other. So these kind of developments we are observing here, and this thing is not good. Okay, so anyhow they need to de-escalate from here, and Iran will certainly look for ways to inflict a cost on the US directly or through militia act process in the region. In that case, the scene would be set for military confrontation between Iran and the US. So these are really negative developments, and we need to see in the future what kind of future we would see here. Next article is regarding the judicial process. We know already many posts in the judiciary, they are vacant in the High Courts and Supreme Court. When Justice J.S. Thakur was there, he became emotional on a stage, and he said that lakhs of poor people, they are waiting for the trials, and because there is a lack of political will, and the judiciary is not able to work efficiently, and they are not able to appoint these judges, and this is the biggest lack, and that needs to be done as soon as it is possible. Supreme Court is now pushing for the full scale 31 judges strength, because that is the maximum strength, and now 27 are working and 4 additional will be there. Supreme Court is keen to fill up current vacancies, and it proposed Jharkhand High Court's Anirudh Bose and Guwahati High Court's A.S. Bopanna, and that was in a way unacceptable to the government. They disagreed on that, and they sent this proposal again to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court again reiterated this issue, and now they have to appoint these people. So right now the things are not smooth between government and the Supreme Court. The tussle is visible, means there is a conflict of interest for sure, and that is also sure that one of them is not honest, one of them is not looking for the legitimate ways, and some hidden interests are there. So that may be government, that may be judiciary. So who is more reliable, that we need to see here, because allegations are there these days on both. So this issue need to be solved here, and there must be actually independent body to institutionalize the process, because the collegium system needs to be revived here, and a lot of changes are needed, and it is time to think over a permanent solution, and that's why we need this. If we talk about the high courts, 396 is the number of vacancy here, and about the lower courts, the numbers are huge, and lakhs of people, they are waiting for their trials, and all these issues are citing towards a situation where we are not being efficient to tackle the problems in this country. We talked about healthcare sector, we talked about other employment sector, we talked about IT sector, now we're talking about judiciary sector. Everywhere vacancies are there, and they are not being fulfilled, and students are crying for the jobs. So this is all mismanagement, and the money is being wasted in the election processes. Thousands of crores of rupees are being wasted there, and all these things can be done with very less amount of money with the help of media and all, but these things are done. So this is really problematic, and here they need to focus on these issues, otherwise things cannot be resolved. If you want to resolve the banking crisis, if you want to resolve the manufacturing privatization sector, all these crises, then courts are needed. And for the national security issues, the tussle between the states, everywhere you need Supreme Courts, High Courts. So these vacancies, they need to be fulfilled here, but for that the basic issue is of the collegium system, so that needs to be changed. So first we need an independent body to institutionalize the process here. So these are the suggestions that need to be taken care of. This is all given in the article. Next, a fraught moment between America and China. As I told you, from $200 billion, 10% of the tariff, they are moving towards 25%, and that's a huge increase in these tariffs, and China wouldn't be able to sustain that. Vice President of China is there in America, still he is there, but it is tweeted by Trump. So what kind of future they are inviting there? Some positive developments were there during their meets, but now again there is problem. Last month IMF trimmed its projection for the global growth in 2019 from 3.5% to 3.3. So there was a negative development, and they just lost some hopes over the world economy. But some positive developments they saw in the last quarter, when some positive developments were there between America and China. But again, this kind of sudden change, that will be devastating for this peace in the trade issues and the economic issues. So IMF chief Christine Lagarde and the recently elected MS Gopinath, chief economist of IMF, and she is of Indian origin. So they warned that the world economy was poised as a delicate moment. So they need to focus on this delicate moment, and they need to take care of it. Otherwise, if they are not going to think about the world trade issue, and they are totally being self-centered, and they will totally being protectionism, going towards protectionism, then we will not see a smooth future, because already security issues are there, troubles are there. If you look at Syria, Iran, Afghanistan, North Korea, all these developments are going on. These are on the security issues, geopolitical issues, and this is the trade issue. So these bigger issues, they all are having a trouble. So it's a very important topic for essay, it's a very important topic for mains, and you can connect all these lines there. These are interconnected, because the future, the peace would be dependent on these bigger issues. So that's a problematic thing, and they need to resolve it. Otherwise, positivity would not be possible here. These are the questions that I'm giving to you. Find their answers and look for the additional data, and please come for the PIB lesson. Very important question we are discussing there. Thanks a lot. Keep watching. It was Amit Sani.